Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast exploring Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois.
And I'm Jimmy Fowler, elder candidate at Redeemer Fellowship.
There are a bunch of ladies at the church building right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's like the parking lot is filled. All these ladies are walking in. What is going on?
It's Wednesday night, so it's ladies' night. It's half off on margaritas.
Oh, is that what it is? I didn't know that.
Half off.
That's why everybody's
half
here.
Off. Yeah.
Dummy. No, it's like a new mom's class study thing.
Well, it's
going
not
on.
new moms, but
Yeah,
it's a new class for mothers.
It's focusing on new moms, and that's why they have seasoned
I saw
moms
some
there.
seasoned mothers.
Yeah, they're here for like counseling, for like investing in and all of that.
Okay.
So all the old moms are here helping out
seasoned,
the young,
the seasoned
yeah.
mothers.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
seasoned.
no, they're not seasoned.
Yeah, they're seasoned.
Like they're salty.
Some of them
are a
are.
little
I've
salty.
met their children. I understand why.
So yeah, there's actually a ton of people here. We just wrapped up an elders meeting, so we're chilling out.
Yep.
And
Get some episodes. Joe's leaving.
yeah, I gotta get out of here.
Joe's leaving us.
I'm going on vacation.
You also told me you're looking at potential jobs. You're going to be interviewing
Right. No.
at some churches.
That's not true.
Or a church.
I would not interview. I would not accept an offer to interview. You are lying. But
No. I'm not lying. You told me. You said I'm getting out of here and I'm looking at a church in South Carolina.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I think you're trying to lead us away from the fact that you have been interviewed recently.
I have not been interviewed.
You have not had a Skype interview.
Oh,
lately.
yes, okay. Come on now. That's different.
Interesting. Now, that was for a rather large production company, I do believe, Jimmy. Was it not?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
So you're being interviewed.
I'm being
by a
interviewed.
production company
By a
to
production
potentially be the televised sidekick of Joe Thorne on an upcoming special. I do believe that's what's happening right now.
That actually is true. That actually is true. Oh, we actually had a whole conversation about that, and I was like, "Listen, I'm only going to sign if at some point in the credits or on the show, Joe is referenced as the series wife, the special wife."
Yeah.
And she said, "Deal."
Oh, so there's this is the same production company that was talking to me last year about being a part of a History Channel special on Jesus, and I didn't want to do it. It wasn't.
You didn't want to do it without the fofo.
Yeah, that too, and I was. So we were left on good terms. They were really excited.
They understood. They were disappointed, but they understood.
So then they came back like, how about this? So we're talking about something that's biblical.
Yep.
That I'm down with. And so we were talking recently about it and just generalities and stuff. And I mentioned the podcast and I mentioned Jimmy and how we do this thing. And, the podcast is pretty popular and she was interested in it. And I said, so, there's a lot of banter and arguing,
Yeah.
but we get into it. And she goes, oh, so you guys differ. You disagree. What do you guys argue?
Yeah,
what's your different perspective?
Where's the drama going to come in?
And I said, well, no, theologically, we're on the same page. We argue about who's the podcast wife. And she, so then she went and watched some of the videos and stuff, and she really liked it. So she's like, I want to talk to the fofo.
She wants to talk to the fofo. Figuring out.
Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
I mean, if it's biblical and cool, we'll do it.
We'll do it. But if it goes weird, I don't think that's not for either of us.
No. But this person that in the production company, she's very cool. And so, yeah, there you go.
There you go. So that's what I interviewed for. Joe was trying to lie earlier.
I wasn't lying. Nobody cares. This is not even.
No, I'm going to say. You know why? Is because you're leaving and you're trying to break my heart before you go.
You said that you said you were taking auditions to replace me while I was gone. That's what you said.
Yes, I held a audition on Monday.
You mean an audition?
Whatever.
You're never going to make it on History Channel, man, if you can't speak.
No, that's why I got you for it. That's the whole thing. It's you know what, Steve didn't correct me. Hey, you know what was actually really good about that night?
Okay, nobody knows what you're talking about.
Okay, with Steve, when I was holding the interview, I came out looking great.
Yeah.
Everyone at the end was like, wow, Steve, you're not looking so good right now. And even Steve's like, I'm not coming off as a really credible person.
I don't even know what you're talking about right now.
During the interview over dinner with Steve McCoy to be your replacement. In this relationship, you always kind of look better and smarter. At my house, I looked better and smarter than Steve.
All right, first of all, I was under the impression that you were joking about interviewing people, but now that I know you really interviewed Steve McCoy, I am not happy right now.
What do you mean?
You can't. First of all, you can't replace me. It's my podcast.
Well, it's my podcast.
It's my podcast.
My
started
podcast.
it. I started it.
My podcast.
And
so Steve, Ed, and I have this idea moving forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's
with Ed behind it, it's sure to break the 200 barrier on Twitter. Ed can't even break the 200 barrier on Twitter. How is he going to teach somebody to break the 200 barrier at their church?
You know what I love is that, and here's the thing about the banter guys. We do it because it's funny to us.
Yeah.
And that right there, even though there's a lot of inside jokes that we just gave
it's annoying
across,
to some people. Sorry.
but it's great for me,
Yeah.
and I'm happy about it. And so, anyways, I'm going to miss you while you're gone. Joe's going on vacation.
Yeah, I'll be gone. Hey, listen. We're talking about 10 Commandments, right?
We're talking about
Let's
10
get to it. People,
All right, let's get to it.
Five people are like really like angry and they're cursing at their MP3 player because they don't actually have an iPhone. It's just their MP3 player. And they're like, hey, these guys I don't have a skip ahead button. What am I going to do now?
So, yeah, we're going to talk about murder. Ooh, the Sixth Commandment. Thou shalt not murder.
Murder, she wrote.
Good job.
You ever watch that show?
Yes.
I hated that show so
I watch.
much. It made me sin.
I watch it with
about
Lenny.
Oh, he would watch it. Lenny's an old timer at the cigar shop.
Yeah, that's who I watch it with.
All right, so we're going to talk about the Sixth Commandment.
Mm-hmm.
You
Thou shalt not murder.
You shall not murder.
Yep.
So what we want to do is we want to encourage you guys to always be going back and read Thomas Watson on the 10 Commandments. We give you links in the show notes. You can go read it for free. You can buy the nice copy online.
That's right.
Whatever you got to do. But read. So next week, be reading on the 7th Commandment before we get to it so that you're prepared. It's really, really good stuff. Today, we're going to be referencing Watson like we always do as we're going through these 10 Commandments. And when Watson deals with this, what's his basic idea? What's his basic take on the breaking of this law?
Yeah, I mean, I think mainly he's trying to say we must not needlessly injure another individual.
Right. And I think that's a good way to talk about it because sometimes injuring someone is an ugly necessity. All right.
You're talking about like in self-defense. Is kind of what you're
self-defense. We're going to have to
defending of others. We're
going to have to do a whole thing on self-defense for real. But yes, self-defense, capital punishment, war. The Old Testament, God commands these things. Yeah. He commands or permits them under the category of justice, and so. We're not saying that killing is always sin, but murder specifically, the taking of innocent life, and by innocent we simply mean innocent civilly in the world, not before God. Mm-hmm. That is forbidden. And so when he says that this is to needlessly injure somebody, he is saying that murder is forbidden, but then so is everything else that leads to murder. That's what he does with it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about anger. You're talking about envy, you're talking about hatred, right?
Good. Well, let's come back to
these issues
that.
of the heart.
Right. Let's come back to those issues of the heart a little bit later. Let's break this down a little bit the way that Watson does it. He breaks it down into the three general forms of breaking the commandment, right?
Yeah.
What is it? What are the three basic?
The three basic ways: injuring another's name, injuring another's body, and then injuring another's soul. That's going to be interesting.
So cool. This is why you read the Puritans, people.
Yeah.
Because they're smarter than you. They're better than you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when he talks about injuring another name, what are we talking about there?
Yeah, we're the reputation. And this is going to lead into the 9th commandment when we get to that. So
bearing false witness.
Right. We're gonna just touch on it here. But when you hurt someone's name through lying, gossip, slander, that kind of a thing, you are in a very real sense destroying them publicly. You're taking away from them in a way that could not only hurt their relationships, but it could even hurt their livelihood.
Oh, absolutely.
It could hurt their feelings, too, which, some people that may not feel very significant to. But when you think about it, if you're actually hurting somebody's feelings, what you're doing is you're injuring them in such a way that they begin to doubt maybe their value or their usefulness to God, to kingdom. I'm not a real sensitive guy, so like Jimmy and I are not real sensitive. We play hardball, meaning we play dodgeball with golf balls and no pads or protection. So we go at it, and that's fun for us.
Yeah.
But there would be a way that Jimmy or I could hurt one another with words.
Yeah.
because we know like what's off limits and what's
Exactly.
not. And so, injuring another's name is one of those things that we can do that has real consequences. The Bible has a lot to say about this. We're going to come back to that on the 9th commandment. But injuring another's body, right? I mean, that's pretty clear, I think, in Scripture.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at, I'm trying to find it here, Genesis 9:6. Who sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed.
Right. So obviously, God takes murder very seriously.
Exactly.
Not just the act of killing, but specifically the taking of the life unnecessarily.
Yes.
That man's life will be required of him if he does that.
And there you're talking about like the capital punishment, justice, and things like that. Yeah.
Right. And just for the record, we ought to do an episode on capital punishment. Let me just get this out there. I am for the just execution, no pun intended, of capital punishment. But that does not mean I'm okay with how capital punishment has worked in our country.
Yeah.
I think in our country, the system is very broken. I think we all know a lot of innocent people have been put to death, or at least we know that people were not guilty of the crimes they were arrested for and found guilty of, have gone through that process. So it's one thing to say ideologically, biblically, I'm for capital punishment as a way of executing justice, but it doesn't mean that you're pro, like, hey, I like how America does it.
Yeah.
So injuring another's body, though, is, this would relate not just to pulling a gun out and shooting them dead.
No, I mean, Jesus talks about that in Matthew 5, right? He talks about if you murder in the heart, like if you hate somebody, right? Like if you're so angry with them, and even like we talk about anger, envy, and hatred, these issues of the heart, then you are, in a way, you're murdering them inside. You know what I mean? Like, in your own heart. And so that is just the same.
Now, Jesus is so clear about this. Now, what's happening here, right? Jesus is dealing with the heart level.
Yeah.
In terms of our thoughts, our emotions, our impulses.
Yeah.
Where you have it can be hatred, right? Where that's easy for me to relate to, or anger is easier for me to relate to than, say, envy, for example. But these are all forms that we all struggle with on one level or another, and it makes us just as guilty as the one who pulled out a gun and shot someone dead. We had over 100 shootings in Chicago over 4th of July weekend.
Wow.
Over 100 shootings. I don't remember how many deaths over the 4th of July weekend. That is crazy.
No, that's nuts. I mean,
it's crazy.
Good thing Trump's sending federal agents to Chicago to kind of fix this. And I'm not trying to make I'm not trying to be really lighthearted about it, but there is a little bit of insincerity in my opinion of Trump and his ability to
keep making light of all the shootings and dead people in Chicago.
I'm just saying he's going to take the government. The government's going to come help and fix something that the government can't even fix itself. Anyways, continue.
Oh man, Illinois budget.
Again,
Illinois budget is about
32% increase.
Yeah.
30. Okay.
Well, first of all, Illinois is so corrupt. Oh my gosh, you guys have no idea. All right, so anyway, what were we talking?
No, what do they say? I think it's either 6 or 7 out of the last 8 governors have been in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, Illinois. Illinois. It's not just Chicago, people. It's the state.
It's Illinois. Yeah. All right, continue.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about
the anger, hatred, and all that. So, but here's what I think is helpful for us is Jesus is dealing with the heart issue. The law gives us the explicit prohibition, so that also would include then in between, right? So you've got acts of violence and abuse that are not unto death, but are stemming from the same place. So,
absolutely. So you're talking about like domestic violence,
absolutely.
Right, child abuse,
right.
in that frame.
Jumping a kid at school because he's
bullying,
right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Bullying would be a
bullying.
And I'm not talking about like
no,
I don't know. There's a difference between.
Can we do an episode on bullying?
No, we haven't done.
Stop with crying about the bullying, first of all. Okay,
no,
real
Joe,
bullying.
I'm going to wear pink.
Okay, I don't like the word, but physically, emotionally intimidating and abusing kids is
manipulating.
Not okay. Is not okay. But teasing. Everybody gets teased, but real, like there's somewhere in there we got to define our terms a little bit better. But yeah, this prohibits all of that.
Yeah.
Like this
and I'm
commandment
talking about
prohibits all of
vicious bullying when I'm talking about.
it.
Like
I was bullied and beat up physically.
and there you have it.
No, I'm fine.
No,
I'm totally fine. What are you talking
You did
about?
not prove the point you were trying to
No,
make.
it is.
You
It's
did not.
Yes, I
Are
did.
you kidding me?
Look, I'm balanced.
You are not
I'm
balanced.
fair and balanced like Fox News.
You again.
See, prove my point.
Point was not proven.
Prosecution rests. Okay, so
Not at Fox News. They're still under.
oh
All
my
right, continue.
goodness. Hey, all right. So we got injuring another's name.
Yep.
Injuring another's body. But then Watson says
yeah.
he takes it to another level and he goes, no, we're breaking this commandment whenever we injure another's soul.
Wow. I mean, here, I'm going to read what Watson says here. All right. This is the greatest murder of all, because there is more of God's image in the soul than in the body. Though the soul cannot be annihilated, it is said to be murdered when it is deprived of its eternal happiness and is forever in torment. How many are soul murderers? And that's not a question. That was an exclamation. Like,
Yeah.
he goes, how many are soul murderers? Like,
They are everywhere.
they're everywhere. And so he kind of lists a few ways that how soul murderers work.
Right, he's got four ways here. Number one, soul murderers are those who corrupt others by bad example. The world is led by example, especially by the examples of great ones, which are very pernicious. We are apt to do as we see others before us, especially those above us. Such as are placed in high power are like the pillar of cloud. Where they went, Israel went. When great ones move, others will follow them, though it is to hell. Evil magistrates, like the tail of the dragon,
Yeah.
draw the third part of the stars after them. What he's saying is, when you have a platform or a position of power or authority where people are likely to watch you, they are likely to emulate you, and your bad example, right?
Our politicians, our civil servants,
pastors, teachers,
well, pastors.
authors.
He kind of goes into the ministers
Yeah.
part for that one.
But anybody who has the ability
Teachers,
to lead
principals.
by example, and then in their example are leading people astray. They're not directly telling them to do something. It's just the way
it might
that they
be
live.
unintentional, but it's
Yeah.
the way that they're living their life. The way they live their life is different. I would even say, for some, by what they profess.
Oh yeah,
Right, and I think that's kind of what we're talking about here as a bad example. But even secondly, soul murderers are those who entice others to sin. So now it gets ramped up. Now
what's the difference between this then and bad example?
I think the first one is they're not drawing people in. They're not actually actively saying participate with me.
Right.
They're doing their own thing, and you see it, and you want to join in.
Yeah, because that's the cool guy.
That's the cool guy, right? They're sitting in the back of the bus, and so here, soul murderers
I used to
are.
sit on the back of the bus.
See again,
Only freshman year though, because then we drove.
that he drove.
Yeah.
All right. So soul murderers are those who entice others to sin. So the harlot, by curling her hair, rolling her eyes, laying open her breast, does what in her lies to be both a tempter and a murderer. Right. So it's like when you're trying to entice and get people to join into your corruption, that's what Watson would call a soul murderer.
Why do people? Okay, so it's one. I get the bad example thing, right?
Yeah.
But why do you think? Like, it's one thing for a guy to go his own way. I'm going to do my thing, and if people follow me, whatever. But then there are others who entice people to join them in their sin. Why do they do that, do you think?
I think at least in my experience, has been for two reasons. One, I want to justify my actions by getting as many people as possible to join in.
I'm not the only one.
I'm not the only one, so it can't be that bad. And that's kind of that second part. Is it really that bad? Like, is it really, why is it that there's some unattainable standard? Can't we all just enjoy can't we all just enjoy this together? So some people would even look at, and I think this is a bad example, but I think some people would accuse you and I of some of these things with smoking and drinking.
Oh yeah.
Even though we don't necessarily entice people, but we're not ones
bad
that
example.
we're bad examples, right? And so, for us, we're pretty open and honest about that. But we don't tell people, hey, disregard your beliefs. I've actually had people send me messages saying, hey, I'm thinking about trying out cigars and I never really smoked. And I'll respond to them and say, well, listen, why do you want to smoke? like if you haven't in the past, and if it's only because you see, you read about
Take
or hear
that money, invest it in the gym.
go do something else with it if that's fine.
Something healthy.
Like, don't feel like you need to do that. And so I'll try to actually encourage them not to, because, well, why are you? I want to know why you want to do it. And in the end, they're going to make their own decisions, and I think there's Christian liberty out there.
Because we're not actually talking about sin in this case. So,
Exactly. But when it comes to sin, though, then there are people that are actively trying to draw others in with them.
and they become instruments of the devil in that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I think is insane. And I think another reason that we tempt others to sin with us is I think there is some sort of, I guess I'm going to say the same thing you said, but I'm going to put it in
a better way.
No, just in a different light, not in a better way at all. That because I'm just repeating what you said, but it kind of exalts them above the other person in that, oh wow, like they're following me now.
It's a control issue.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's something.
I could see that. I could see that. Yep.
All right. Well, then he lists this number 3 as injuries to another's soul. He says, ministers are murderers. Ministers are murderers who either starve or poison or infect souls. When I say to a wicked man, you will surely die, and you do not warn him or speak out to dissuade him from his evil ways in order to save his life, that wicked man will die for his sin, and I will hold you accountable for his blood. That's Ezekiel 3:18. Ministers are murderers when they neglect to share the truth
Yes.
of God and the gospel with those who are perishing.
Yeah, and I mean, talk about that. Like, when you starve the soul, right? Feed the flock of God which is among you. We find in 1 Peter 5. So they feed themselves and they starve the flock. So as ministers, as presenters of the gospel and as the word of God, are we actually giving meat and potatoes to our people?
I listen. I've listened to pastors say like, "Oh, I study, I read, I'm reading all this stuff," but I can't give that stuff to my congregation. They're too dumb. They're too young. They can't. They're on. No, they say this.
They say dumb?
Absolutely.
That's surprising. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
They're like, no, they're just too immature. They can't handle it. They'll freak out. They'll get mad. They have a million different excuses.
Okay.
But they are starving the souls of their
Exactly.
people.
You got to give them that doctrine.
Yeah, theology, the truth, however offensive it may be. So there are some who starve the souls of God's people. There are others who poison souls. Such are heterodox ministers. Don't go there, Jimmy. Who poison people with error. Right. So this is the bad theology and wonky theology. It doesn't have to be outright blatant heresy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just stupid, inventive, curious concepts that are applied to it that aren't necessarily outright heresy that'll damn someone to hell, but is enough to lead people into heterodox.
There's a lot of people out there, right? Like,
Stop it.
No, you think of like
Stop
Benny
it.
Hinn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think of Benny Hinn. You think of
Nick Batzig. Nick Batzig is super orthodox. We love Nick. I'm just teasing. I'm trying to derail you.
No, you're trying to derail me from bringing up.
I know what you're going to bring up.
The
Don't bring
dollar.
it up.
I'm going to bring up the Creflo. I'm going to bring up the dollar. The Creflo dollar.
All right, yeah.
Go-
Jimmy's
no,
talking about.
I think this is pertinent.
All right, so I can't say who, but somebody
don't say who.
somebody sent an audio clip of a Creflo Dollar sermon to a friend of mine who sent it to me. And you know it's Creflo Dollar, you can hear it. But it was interesting. I heard it today.
Okay, so what happened? You got to say it. You
I'm
can't
getting
you can't
to
just
it.
say, I heard a thing. And
Listen,
then
the
move
water
on.
is cold. Okay, I'm trying to ease into it.
Okay.
I'm not just going to jump in.
No, jump right in.
Get a
'cause-
heart attack and die.
All right,
All right.
go.
So anyway, in this sermon, Velcro is saying, whatever his name is, he was saying that whatever you do to the least of these, you have done to me, said Jesus.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And therefore, when two Christians have sex, you're having sex with Jesus. If you take advantage of a person and you're having sex outside of marriage, you are having sex with Jesus.
But then wouldn't you? But
Because two Christians, your brother and sister, members of Christ, you're having sex with Jesus.
So no matter what, sex is with Jesus.
All I know is that I wanted to punch him through the iPad. That's all I know. It was disturbing. So you've got,
But that right there that's poison.
it is poison.
That right there is error. That is nuts.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And people were kind of clapping and cheering on.
Oh, of course they were. Yeah, because Dollar said it. And here's the thing: it can
Because they've been starved.
It doesn't have to be scandalous for it to be poison.
No.
Sometimes it's
You're
just
right. You're
feel good. Like, hey, man, you know what? God wants you to be happy. You just need to let go, let God, and you know what?
Live your best life now.
That's what it is, right? Listen to some of those sermons. Poison is sometimes sweet. It's not always bitter. Right? It's not always shocking. Sometimes it's odorless and tasteless. You don't even know you're ingesting it. That's the most dangerous kind.
Yeah,
You're a
I
Creflo
agree.
Dollar saying something stupid. You're like, I ain't drinking that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I can tell that's poison. It's got the skull and crossbones right on it. I'm not a fool. But then there's the other kind of poisons that are a bit more subtle. We got to be careful here. Heterodox ministers, definitely poison. What else?
Those who infect souls by their scandalous lives. And I think this is just more about hypocrisy.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got ministers who have been caught in adultery, and they leave the church and their wife or their girlfriend. You have ministers who cover up child abuse in the church, don't want to deal with it. We have all kinds of scandalous sin that has been covered by those in ministry, and this is a murdering of people's souls. Number 4.
And I mean, I don't know. Sorry, just because it's one of those things that really irritates me. But I mean, even well-known churches and ministries that one would look at and say, man, this is orthodox, they're conservative, they've got this all together. And yet, when it comes to that kind of an issue, cause murder.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know we've had an episode on it when we talk about child abuse, but it's just, or sexual abuse, I should say, sexual abuse in the church. It boggles my mind that I can't fathom it. I can't understand why a church would not allow, or that the church would allow that to happen under their watch, but then not prosecute appropriately and protect appropriately.
If they don't have the heart of God, because, what is it but to do justice and to love mercy and to walk humbly with God. I mean, that's the bottom line.
All right, sorry. So then when we look at these things, Joe, injuring another's name, injuring another's body, injuring another's soul, what are the implications of this? When we hear we must not needlessly injure another, and when we talk about you shall not murder, or you shall not kill, you shall not murder. I think that's the better translation. What then are the implications for that?
Yeah, I think Watson talks about this, and he says that the implications here is that, if the prohibition is from injuring others needlessly, if that's the explicit command, then the implication is you must not injure yourself.
Yes.
You must not injure yourself physically or spiritually.
Absolutely.
Again, this is unnecessarily to do so. So, people want to say, like, well, when you get a tattoo, aren't you scarring your body? And isn't that unnecessary? Or when you're smoking your cigars, you're putting yourself in danger. You're needlessly injuring yourself. Yeah, well, when you work out and you're lifting weights, you're tearing the muscles, and then they have to heal. That's the means by which they grow bigger. So technically, you're injuring yourself in order to, it's like, come on. These things break down. Food, diet. We're not going to get into that stuff because it's just silly. What we are going to say is that hurting yourself, physically or spiritually, harming yourself, physically or spiritually.
So let's first start with physically.
Is a sin. Yeah, well, I think that, Watson says this applies to gluttony, drunkenness, clearly.
And then even some of the ones we would think about ourselves when it comes to, suicide.
Yeah, of course.
When it comes to, there are some people that cut themselves. Mm-hmm. We're talking about that kind of stuff when we think of physically.
Yeah, and we understand that there's a psychological component there. People are trying to cope. They're trying to deal with trauma and heartache, and so we're not coming crashing down on people who have suicidal thoughts. We have to minister to people who have suicidal thoughts and people that do cut themselves. I mean, these are the people that are in our churches, and so we minister to these people. But understanding that injuring yourself is, while I understand where you're coming from, you're not trying to do something wrong. You are breaking God's command and God's design for your life. So injuring yourself physically, I think that's easy for people to understand, but I think injuring ourselves spiritually.
Yeah.
I don't think most of us think about that very
No,
much.
I don't think so. And I think part of that then is keeping watch, I guess, over what we digest, what books we are reading, what shows we are watching, what music we are listening to. What are those things that we are partaking in that are either that's edifying or destroying? I know there was a time in my life where music was a big one for me. Was not listening to certain kinds of music or certain songs because I felt myself becoming amped, I guess is the better way to put it. Like
Amped is bad.
amped in a bad way. Like not like excited, but just like I would start to get angry.
Yeah.
And
But
upset.
music and
It's
art
very emotional.
impacts people emotionally.
Yeah.
And if it's producing in you ungodly emotions, you got to distance yourself
Exactly.
from it.
Exactly.
For sure.
You know, now, at certain, there's been certain points where I've been able to listen to songs and appreciate the creative value in them without certain emotions that used to, crop up. But I guess because what I'm trying to say is spiritually then, what we're reading, or maybe if we're neglecting to read, if we're not spending time in the Word, if we're not partaking the means of grace, if we're not,
If
praying,
a pastor can starve a congregation,
you could starve yourself.
absolutely.
Are you in community? Are you valuing corporate worship? Are you valuing scripture? Are you valuing prayer? Are these things a priority in your life for the feeding and nourishment of your soul? If not, you are injuring yourself spiritually.
I totally agree. And we all do it to one degree or another.
Yeah.
Right?
And for seasons.
Yeah, you find yourself there, whether it's laziness or you find like a curious and almost morbid interest in something that's just not healthy, right? You got to know what's good for you and what's not, and you got to know that in moderation some things are okay.
Yeah.
But then too much and things get out of hand.
And actually, I was convicted of this yesterday.
Oh really?
Yeah, I was convicted of this yesterday as I was reading Calvin's book, and he talks about the two things at the beginning there: pursuing righteousness, reading scripture. And it was that pursuing righteousness that was really convicting for me.
Yeah, you don't do that.
I don't think of it. You know what I mean? Like I don't intentionally pursue unrighteousness, but do I intentionally, pursue righteousness, that which is good for my soul?
Right.
And so I was really convicted when I was reading that book you gave me. And yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that yesterday and now as we're talking over this.
This whole idea of, do not murder, do not injure another's name, body, or soul, or yourself,
Yeah.
physically or spiritually. It's a negative statement. Do not do this. So do not murder, though, has a positive duty attached to it, and that is
Preserve life.
you preserve life, physical life, spiritual life. You preserve the lives of others as well as the
Yes.
life of yourself. So preserving life is the positive mandate here. And how do we do that? Like, if we were going to break it down real simple, how do we preserve life as
I would
people
say
of God?
defend the innocent, defend defend those defend the defenseless, I guess is the way to put it. Protect
So justice would be the big word.
justice, I would say
Pursue
that. Yeah.
justice.
Pursue justice. But I think it's more than that though. I think I guess in my head when I hear pursue justice, it's almost like an after the fact, right? Like something has happened, now pursue justice on someone's behalf. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking something, at least when I read this and think through it, I'm thinking something more like a preemptive.
Yeah, well,
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think that, but that is the pursuit of justice. I mean, I would agree with what you're saying. I would just say that is justice. Like we want to make sure that that the innocent are protected, that there is no injustice being carried out against people.
Yep.
So yeah,
so things like domestic violence, protecting
Yeah.
these individuals, protecting children that are being sexually or physically abused. I mean, that's where the whole, we discuss abortion.
Right.
defending and protecting unborn children.
We're going to do an episode on
that as well.
So yeah, we've got these issues that come up that justice will push. I mean, like, this is the will of God, right? To do justice and to love mercy. So this is something that we should care about, and it comes out in the commandments, right? In the Sixth Commandment, that we're not just supposed to be for life, but we are to protect life. We're supposed to defend life.
And like you said, physically and spiritually. So I would also then, going into the spiritual aspect of it, that we've kind of talked about not injuring ourselves spiritually. But then how are you protecting your family, right? How are you protecting your children or your spouse? Are you encouraging them in their faith? Are you spending time, talking with them? I'm not talking about like making a 2-hour event every night of a family worship time, right?
Don't do that. You'll kill your kids.
Because it's boring.
Yeah. God doesn't want you to do it that way. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. But I'm talking about there has to be some intentionality.
Yeah.
How are you preaching the gospel to them? How are you sharing God's word with them? How are you praying with them? And then for your spouse, especially as husbands, as the spiritual head of your home, how are you nurturing your wife's faith?
Right.
How are you encouraging her to grow deeper in God? Right, like it's not only like saying, "Hey, how's your quiet time this morning?" or "How's your prayer time this morning?" That's all good to do, but are you making the time for her to meet with others? Are you making her, giving her that time so where she can hang out with other ladies to read and to study and to enjoy life? Are you making that time for her to be able to go to women's ministry events or anything like that? So I'm just trying to say, in all these things, when we're talking about protecting spiritually, how are you taking care of your family?
100%, man. I mean, if we're going to...
I'm 100.
You're 100?
I'm 100. Because you said 100%. I'm 100.
I know, but if you are, you don't say it. Other people say it about you. If you have to say it about yourself, then not really.
No, I'm that 100.
Okay.
I'm so 100, I could say 100.
So we've got the pursuit of justice and the preaching of the gospel, if we're going to boil it down. This is how you carry out this commandment. The pursuit of justice means you love God in his ways, and it means you love people made in his image. Yeah. So you actually care about, how minorities are treated.
Yes.
You really care about how, women are treated, how children are treated, how men are treated. You actually pay attention, and you want to see righteousness, right? Not political correctness. I don't care about political correctness. I think it's fun to blow up political correctness. But justice, that we should be about. And then the preaching of the gospel. And by gospel here, I don't just mean the saving truth of Jesus Christ, but all of God's word as it relates to Jesus Christ. I totally agree with you. The Sixth Commandment, you shall not murder.
Man, we had a whole conversation on that?
Yeah, we did.
I'm just saying, like...
You know what we got to do next?
The Seventh Commandment.
Oh, really?
What do you think we were going to do next?
I thought we were going to go grab a cigar. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the Seventh Commandment. Hey, if you have not yet, read Watson on the Seventh Commandment. Get ready.
Do it. Do it. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Doc and Devo, or on Facebook /Doctrine and Devotion. You can head on over to the website, doctrinedevotion.com. There you can contact us. You can sign up for our email blast. Or you can hit up the store and grab some merchandise.
Grab the swag.
Fresh Pod every... It's not swag.
Fresh and hot.
It's not swag.
Fresh and hot. I told you that. Don't worry about it.
I know, but it's not swag.
I know it's not stuff we all get. It's merchandise. I know.
Okay.
I corrected you, and you don't correct me.
I know,
on
I
that.
just corrected
you.
No,
but I'm just saying I'm calling it swag because that's what
Fresh
you
Pod
call
every
it.
Monday and Thursday. Blog posts on Wednesdays.
Hot wow now.
Later.